listening to the Startup Scale Up Show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to create meaningful businesses and pursue their passions. My name is Demi Samande and I am a furniture manufacturer, best known for documenting my move to Lagos, Nigeria for hopes of business opportunities. And I'm sitting down with entrepreneurs from across the continent to talk about their process, the lessons they have learned, and how to make real impact. Welcome to Susu. Our guest today is Ifeoma Uddoh. Ifeoma is a very analytical, result-driven professional with more than 8 years' experience in business strategy, formulation and review, market research, information technology, e-business and operations strategy development. She has a BS in industrial mathematics and has subsequently received a scholarship to study management, science and operations research at the Lancaster University. She's also a recipient of the World Bank Scholarship for Advanced Mathematics in AUST. She started her career as a business consultant in PricewaterhouseCoopers, where she was involved in a number of projects involving business plans, feasibility studies, and market research. She has also since moved on to work with 2 early-stage startups that have raised over $12 million in funding. While in the UK, she developed a forecasting model for one of the top retail stores to plan their distribution to 226 stores. She was also one of the top 20 finalists for business plan competition for women from Asia, Latin America, and Africa by Bid Network, Netherlands. She is currently working as an angel investor, providing seed funding to technology and technology-enabled startups. Right now, she runs Shecluded, which is a digital finance company for women entrepreneurs. Ifeoma, thank you so much for joining me on Susu Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Now, having followed your profile and just doing my own personal research on you, I was very excited to actually sit down with you and have a conversation. And I'm really hoping that our listeners today are equally going to gain what I believe I'm going to gain from this conversation today. But before we kind of delve into the nitty-gritty of the business, I always like to sort of just paint the foundation for our listeners in terms of your background, how you grew up, what were the sort of founding years for you as a human being on this planet, first and foremost. Kind of just give me that backstory a little bit from your childhood and how that basically came about.
Okay, so I was the first of 4 kids. My dad was a police officer.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was
controversial.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
to say the least.
Yeah, so I was the first of 4 kids, and literally I was a princess because my dad grew up in a home with 4 boys. So, he wanted to have a sister. So I happened to be his sister and his daughter. And I think at 9, my dad left and he never came back. And that's how,
Wow.
there was a burial, and it looks like I woke up and realized, like, okay, this is life and stuff.
But he left or he passed?
He passed. He
Wow,
traveled,
so
and he had an accident and just didn't come back. And I mean, that experience kind of woke me up to, I think that was the first time I became aware that I was a human being, because just watching the burial, watching our life change with the whole process was an awakening. And yeah, so I mean, my mom was 27 at the time, so
that's pretty young.
Yeah, she's pretty young.
Yes.
With 4 kids. Like, I keep mocking her and saying, like, how come you married at 18? She's like, those days, you just have to marry.
Things were different, weren't they?
Things were different for me. But I think that that whole experience shaped me to knowing that, one, I wanted to be a woman in charge of my life, because earlier I knew that just depending on someone isn't as reliable as depending on yourself, so that kind of shaped my decision. I always tell people that I was one of those people that in secondary school, I was a very, very average student, but I knew who I wanted to be, and I knew that I would rather put 100% fighting for who I wanted to be. I mean, so when I went to the university and I was like, oh, you have to make a 2-1 and stuff. I mean, from my previous background, I knew that I couldn't do that. I just felt that, I'd never been that smart kid, but I was one of the people that put the effort to the end. And, I eventually made that. Eventually even got a scholarship to the UK for my master's. Eventually worked in, PwC. Then I went for a master. While I was at PwC, I said, you know what? I always wanted to do something more with my life. And that's how I got a scholarship for masters. I went for masters. I came back to Nigeria. And when I came back to Nigeria, I was just at the start of when, tech was getting popular, tech startups and stuff. And some of my colleagues in PwC were like, oh, there's this tech startup, blah, blah, blah. We moved there. Do you want to join? And I said, you know what? Yeah, I wanted to join. And while I was there, it was funny to know that there's a lot more than just clicking a website and signing on.
Oh yeah, it's a bit more technical, was it?
A bit more technical and stuff, because I was doing analytics at a company and then. So after that, I went to another tech company. Then I went to seed funding. It was interesting because for me, we've been on the other side. I've been on the other side looking at companies raising money and trying to see we need to meet the KPIs and stuff. And right now I was on this other side where I was going to be looking at companies and saying, where do I put my money? So I understood.
You understood what it took.
Yeah, so it was. So I was one of those people that were fortunate enough to have been on both sides, to see, the drama on this side, how the company culture changes from being laid back to being data driven, to being numbers driven, to being profit driven, to being on this side to say, okay, I actually have money, I want to invest, but I'm not seeing a lot of companies to invest. I mean, so I'm doing that. While I was there, I had my first baby, my second baby, and by the time I had my second baby, I realized something. I mean, I was one of those people that you would call, like, I was the nerd, like I was either reading or working. So with baby number one, I felt like, gosh, something happened, like I can feel a weight. With baby number two, it occurred to me why women fell off the corporate, you know how.
Was it the pressure to just be
the pressure
nurturing mum and to be with your child and all of that?
I think it's the pressure to be, your attention, it's like you're now juggling more balls. When you, before that I was juggling maybe one or two balls, maybe wife and work and stuff. So right now it's like I'm juggling so many balls with so many voices and opinions of who I'm supposed to be. And with baby number 3, I'm like, oh gosh. Wow. So, but something interesting happened. I think while I was in the seed funding company, I realized that we were not getting applications from female entrepreneurs. And it just got me interested. Like, I mean,
before we even go into that, you are specifically in the female space. You're in the tech space, but you're very niche in terms of you're targeted at women predominantly. What was it that you recognized about women in business or the lack thereof that inspired you to want to be more intentional about women specifically?
Frankly, I think that I was not one of, how people say that they were like female focused, female feminist or something. I wasn't one of them. Like, I sat down all my life. I've been in STEM and I've worked in tech companies. So all my like best friends, other people I call for coffee and stuff or talk to are men. So I never realized that there was anything very different. I think for me it was when I didn't see a lot of women applying and I started feeling the weight of being that I wanted to be this big thing. And I'm actually seeing that I feel something dragging me behind.
The resistance.
Yeah. That I realized that, wait a minute, if with my own drive, I feel this way, then there must be something. So I just said, you know what? I think I would like to invest in women businesses. So it's just something that, it's not something I dreamt and wake up and said, hey, I wanted to do this. I just woke up one day and said, you know what? I think this is where I want to put my money. I'm getting older and I want to do something that is both profitable and impactful. And I feel that women is one of them. So that's how I dabbled into it.
So I think it goes without saying that as women, we tend to be quite modest in our search for funding in businesses. I think we're quite modest in our approach to business in general. A lot of us are very very scared to venture out into business. We have tons of ideas. So we're blessed with ideas. We think about this, we think about that. But very few of us are willing to actually put our neck out and say, okay, here I am. I want to go for it. But on top of that, when we find the ones who are brave enough to enter the space, we find ourselves very like, oh, I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to tell them that, I'm struggling to pay salaries this month. I don't want to tell them that I have this big dream. What if they laugh at me? Did you find that to be the case in your experience when you decided to kind of make women the focal point for your own investments? Or how have you sort of experienced that that sort of that minimizing woman mindset? How have you found that?
I found that, I mean, it was very funny for me to know that. I mean, I was talking to, so most of our clients are like mid-class women because we have a requirement to be able to work with women when we started. And I found that, I mean, I was talking to women that even were making more money than me monthly, and they were not sounding very confident. I think that the first thing that I realized was that without gender perspective, knowing the social characteristics of women, meaning the struggle that they faced and how they were raised and stuff, if you analyze them with the normal algorithms that have been there, you know how you think that, hi, I want to fund a company. I want the CEOs to be on top of her numbers. I want her to look a certain way, sound a certain way, and be very like consistent, very clear stuff. If you have that notion of who a successful entrepreneur should be, you miss women because they will always not sound like that. But it doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing. So I became aware of, I mean, sometimes, so most of my mentors are men. And sometimes when I go to them, I see them still telling me that, Ifeoma, you're thinking in a certain way. And because I work with women and I tell the women I work with the same thing, I now see that it might have something to do with my gender. Do you get? So what do you do when you find that some of your social characteristics actually might be working against where you want to be? It's just being conscious.
Describe some of those characteristics. What would you say that what did it look like? What does it sound like?
So it sounds like, I mean, before, when I started loans, I know that I was doing research and saying, what are the subjective, qualitative things that I should look out for? And I had like people asking, please help me, blah, blah, blah. And I got people asking me for loans that they were going to pay interest on, saying, help me.
I see.
Do you get what I mean? And they actually paid. Do you get what I mean?
Yes.
And it's just like, I asked somebody, do me a pitch deck and send me a deck of what you're doing so that I can understand it and be able to fund it. And they never came back.
But is that because they don't know how to do a pitch deck and are afraid to say, I don't know how to do, or they were just intimidated at the thought that, they'll be seen as not good enough?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of various things. One is that they just feel that, I won't be able to get this. This is out of my league. Two is the fact that sometimes doing this extra work. So I realized that just trying to understand genders and how it actually plays a role in how you see the world. I understand that, most times, most women are brought up to be operational, in the home, very, very operational. And most guys are brought up to be less operational and very more strategic, when you have time to read the paper and stuff and everything. So it takes away some of the decisions to go higher are strategic. And that means that you have to be less operational. And this is what most women have known. And this is what they feel is their strong point. So just that whole mental shift to say that, okay, so now to do that pitch deck, for 1 week, you might not pay attention to the operations of your business. You have to focus and do research and do this thing. Many of them don't see it as, when you feel that you won't get it. And when you now feel that, there's money to be made, the money for today, you're going to miss it. And you actually now don't know how. So it just means that, let me just pass.
Yes. And just do what I know.
Yeah, and just do what I know and just continue doing what I know. So that's it. And I mean, like, just by working with female entrepreneurs, I'm amazed that thought leadership for female entrepreneurs. I mean, Africa has the highest number of female entrepreneurs. There's no thought leadership. People are not writing. I mean, I've been working all my life, and I know that in Nigeria, like manufacturing is like, you have to have capital and everything.
Yes.
And I was surprised to see like there are a lot of women in manufacturing in Nigeria. And it's something that inspires me, because it means that these guys are hopeful, because it's, like a sector that many people and many investors think that is dead on arrival, except you have plenty capital and everything. Like, people actually take the risk in that sector, and they're selling okay. Although that I feel that, many of them that we work with, I always tell them that you have this product now. The next thing I want you to think about is distribution. How do you make sure you're everywhere? How do you make sure you even aspire to be Walmart and stuff? And when I think about it like that, I always tell them, you've done the business part, the creative part. Now you have to come up and do the strategic part and say, hi, I want to be everywhere. You have to see it, to even attempt it and stuff.
It's really weird that you say that. As you were speaking, my mind was just going to the thought that I always have, that when I walk around Nigeria and I see the day-to-day life and the day-to-day individual kind of going about life, entrepreneurship is very much our way of life. That's why we have the highest number of entrepreneurs in Africa, and maybe in majority part of the world, because for us it's a way of life. Just like when you sort of embarked onto entrepreneurship, you never had the thought of being intentional about entrepreneurship in your foresight. You kind of just stumbled across this thing and you're like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. And I think because it's a way of life for us over here, it's very much a survival thing. Many women are in spaces where they're there because they're surviving, they're starting businesses, because technically they don't really have much choice. But they don't always have the foresight to see that business that they've started can actually go the long haul. And I think that's really where the disconnect is. You're operating as a technician every day, but then you're forgetting that you're actually somehow you're kind of like growing an entrepreneur in there without quite realizing it. So what do you think women actually need to do in order to be more connected with the possibility that the technician in them can in fact go the long haul?
So I think that working with women, one thing I realize is that there is a lot of mind expanding that needs to be done. I mean, when I'm talking to, let me give you an example. There's this client that we were talking to, we're having a business support session, and she was telling me all the things. She does fruit juice, and she was telling me all the things that were wrong with her business. She wants her to go back into employment and stuff. I said, hey, how much do you make monthly? She said 200,000 or 300,000, thereabout. And when she was telling me about, her stuff and everything, I said, hi, let me introduce yourself to you. And she said, okay. I said, hey, hi, your name is XXXX, whatever her name is, that you run an organic manufacturing company, that you right now you do fruit juice. You have the opportunity to do juice for children. You have the opportunity to do juice for diabetic patients. You have the opportunity to have your lines and your products in every retail store in Nigeria, and even supply to African countries and stuff. That you are contributing to one of the SDGs, which is like basically making sure that people have healthy foods and everything across. And she stopped and she looked at me.
She didn't even know she was doing all of that, or even had the potential to.
Yeah, and she said she has never seen herself that way. And I said, the key thing that I noticed, even just by working on my own self as an entrepreneur, because I always tell people, like you mentioned accurately, that most women go into entrepreneurship as survival. I didn't go in as survivor because the corporate world was good to me. I always feel that I've always felt qualified enough to get the kind of jobs that I want, and that has always been my trend. And I've always felt welcomed at a table somehow, because I feel like I always fight my way on the table to be recognized and stuff.
Is that by the virtue of your skills, or you find yourself fighting for those positions?
So, like I told you, from my background, I wasn't a smart, beautiful one.
Yes.
I just woke up one day and said, you know what? I don't care what I am. I care what I want to be. And that's what I'm going to do. So even if I get to the worst job, or the job that I'm not qualified for, I'm going to sit down there and say, you know what? I got to put on my best to be the best, to be seen and stuff. So that's always been my mindset. So, So back to what we're saying. So there's a lot of like visualization that needs to happen. I mean, when we started when I started doing Shikluda and stuff, I mean, at the beginning of the year, we did what is it called? Like a vision board. And I just realized that you have to, for most of the things you want to achieve, you have to actually see yourself there. You know, it's very funny that, you know, a lot of women haven't taken that time. It's like when I meet women and they said, oh, I'm a receptionist. I've been a receptionist for 7 years, for 5 years, and I've been earning 100,000 naira. I said, did you ever at any time think that, wait a minute, I want more? Did you ever at any time think that, can I, you know, like, I'm still confused. Like,
Yes.
how did you arrive here? Again, maybe this is from my mathematics skills and everything. It's always that I always at different points in time try to think about it and say, where am I going to? It's like, where's this going? If you are a receptionist and you've been a receptionist 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and your salary is the same, by now you should be thinking about, should I move to another company and be a receptionist and increase my salary? And maybe find out that maybe all the receptionists everywhere earn 100,000, and now say, do I need to do more? You know,
Do I need to be more? Do I even want more?
Yeah, do I even want more? No, so I noticed that many of them want more, but they feel that they are stuck. So it's that whole thinking process to say, and I, you know, like, some of them, when they come to my office and everything, and I'm like, oh, you know, how old are you? When we're having one-on-ones and everything, I'm like, oh, 27, 28. I'm like, oh, so what do you plan to do? And I just noticed that people, it just looks like there's no plan.
They're reluctant. They're reluctant to share, or they're just reluctant to even visualize any plans for themselves.
No, they don't have. It's I think that it's, so for me, I don't like saying that people don't have plans. It's just an awakening that you actually are waiting for somebody to sit at the driver's side of your life.
The savior syndrome.
Yeah,
waiting for a savior.
Knight in shining armor and stuff. And I, you know, sometimes when I want to wake them up, I'm saying, you're waiting for him, right? And, you know, we crack up and we start laughing. And after a while, I said, you know, what if he doesn't come? I said, have you ever sat in a bus at 40 years old and stuff? And they just, you know, sometimes, you know, it's an emotional awakening for most of them. And I said, see, it's not like, I'm not trying to poke holes in your dream. But again, maybe it's from my experience.
You need to have one, first and foremost. You need to have a dream.
So, but I noticed that, I think that from my experience, you know, I told you that my dad died when my mom was 27. So it made me realize that, I mean, she got the knight in shining armor, but he just left.
Wow.
Do you get what I mean? So I'm always
That's really interesting that you've connected it back to that.
No,
I think that's very inward.
No, because I noticed that it is inward, because you know, when you see this trend happen over and over again, you'd realize that if I'm thinking this way, there's something in my initial formation that made you that way.
But I think the powerful thing really is being able to identify it, because I think I believe everything in life is very interconnected. Like nothing just happens randomly. You are who you are because of a series of events and situations that have happened in your past, present, all of that. So just being mindful and just being really self-aware to know that I know myself and I know what makes me who I am. So therefore it's easier for me then to plan who I want to therefore be.
Yeah.
Because I've really analyzed it properly. And I think it's it's actually very impressive that you made that connection, because as you were speaking and as you sort of mentioned it at the very beginning of our talk, and I was thinking to myself, that's a pivotal thing to have happened in anybody's life. That would have contributed a huge amount to who they now decide to be.
Yeah, because I mean, looking at my background, I knew the first time that I woke up and told my mom that I wanted to go for masters, and she said, oh, Unilag. And I said, no, I want to go abroad for masters, and nobody has gone abroad in my family. And you know, I was working at PwC and I was earning 130,000 naira. per
Okay.
month. So it was like, huh? Okay. You know, but eventually when and frankly, when I had that dream, I actually didn't know how it was going to happen. I just knew that I started looking for universities abroad and everything, and started thinking about how do I save money to get it. And one day I was sitting in the office, and one lady comes in and says, "Hey, I got a scholarship at LSE,
Oh,
a
wow.
full scholarship at LSE." And I thought to myself, and she's from a wealthy family. How is life not fair? And then after the whole, everybody was like, "Oh, she's going to LSE and everything." I sat down and said, "Wow, perhaps I can get a scholarship."
So you visualized it for
Yes.
yourself.
Yes. So I went and I started applying to schools, and I now started searching for scholarship. Before them, I actually didn't even think that, it was for normal people.
Yes.
Yeah, because I always see myself as normal, it's not like, so I mean, do you get what that did for me? So most times I feel that with women, it's always about visualization and stuff. Always, it's very, very big. Most women, just by upbringing and just by, their history of maybe how they saw their mother, their grandmother and stuff,
Mm.
they unknowingly are projecting forward what they have seen. So if you're able to show them an image and say, "Hi, so this is another image, and this lady is beautiful," and she sees it and she likes the woman, she can wake up and say, "Hi, perhaps I can try to be that woman."
Yes. That's really, really powerful. And I think that's why it's really important to have these conversations, because visualization, it helps when you can see people doing the things that you want to do who look like you, who are almost like a representation of who you are and who you can be, and you can recognize yourself in them as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really interesting. So in terms of you starting She Cluded, as a business, how long have you guys been running now?
2 years.
2 years. How are you finding it? How's it been so far?
Frankly, how has it been? So for me, I felt that it was an avenue. It was entrepreneurship for me was a self-awareness too, because I began to notice that there were so many things that about myself and about my routine that I needed to fix. It was also an awareness of, you know, like bias, like gender bias for me. It was an awareness for me also that entrepreneurs in Nigeria that said to do things the right way should be respected. Like it's actually there are no favorable government policies. Like there are no the incentive of trying to do things the right way and trying to be an entrepreneur. It's very like they should be
It's
actually
non-existent basically
yeah,
in this
so when
environment.
people say they want to be entrepreneurs and when they do their best to put people, you should actually respect them and stuff. So it's been it's yeah, I think those are the things that he brought up for me. And for me it was like, I mean, sometimes I wake up and say, "Hi, do I really want to do this?" And I think about the women, I think about the people that we do, and I think about the data that we'll be able to collect and be able to prove that, hi, actually, the current structures for financial institutions should actually be modified to include women. It's
So it should be more intentional for
yeah,
women.
it should be more intentional. See, whenever I have these conversations, I hate sounding like the way
But are you
women.
you're a
Yeah,
fan of affirmative action?
yeah, I hate sounding the way that women used to sound because I've always felt that they always
How did
sound,
women use the sound?
like, "Oh, put me at the table and stuff." No, I mean,
Affirmative action,
yeah,
even till today, is very, very important. And some people don't believe it works, but I think affirmative action with the intention of picking the right women, not just
yes,
put me at the table because I'm
yeah,
a woman, but rather
yeah.
put me there because I have the
Let me tell you,
credentials and I
yeah,
have the potential like any other man.
yeah. So I think that for me, it's just an awareness that the current structure, the way that people communicate certain financial services, the way that it's being served, will exclude women
Intentionally.
unintentionally.
Okay.
Like the current structures, how like, the banking system, everything has been formed since 19 whatever, when women were not players
Yes.
and they were not a target market. It showed me that right now we need to make few changes to be able to make more of that, more common. And those changes need to happen from not just, so when I see like people saying like they're trying to do inclusion and diversity and stuff, it's not enough to bring a woman on the table. You need to bring the woman with the perspective. Remember that, like I said, most of this perspective I still having on gender, I never knew there was anything. Like, you know, like when I hear like, you know, women saying, oh, blah, 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 I'm always like, oh gosh, this women just go and do the hard work. But right now, when I'm on this side, I see it.
You can see the scarcity.
Yeah, I can see the bias, that I can see the subconscious bias of being on our end, you know, being already in the corporate and stuff. I can see the subconscious bias. I can see the structures that make it impossible for most of them to come in and stuff. But before I was on this side,
you were completely oblivious to it.
So it made me aware that inclusion goes beyond putting a woman there. If you'd put me even from working for 10 years, you know, with even like big companies and consulting, and said, you've put me as saying, hey, hi, Ifeoma is the head of inclusion, whatever, for XX, I would actually not have been able to bring as much as I would have been able to bring down.
Yes.
Do you get what I mean? Yeah. So it was it's a realization that it took me this experience to actually know that. So when I see people saying, oh, I just appointed a woman as this, and I said, if this woman has been in corporate all her life, she actually doesn't have that perspective that they want to bring in. She actually doesn't have all that perspective, not that they want to bring on that table. So yeah, it made me actually appreciate inclusion some more.
So in which ways are you sort of pushing for inclusion now, being on the inside looking out? What are the things that you feel that you're doing? What are the things that you feel it needs to be done under affirmative action, that particular woman who is going to get in there has to be very forward thinking about and put into action?
So, I mean, for different sectors and for different areas, there are different things. One is that, I mean, if I want to speak about like investing,
we can talk fintech.
Yeah, if I want to think about investing and financing for women, a key thing that I would like to do is that the way that, so when I think about people and banks trying to reach women, I noticed that the first key strategy and the only strategy it looks like they have on the table is low interest rate. But guess what?
zero digit.
Yeah, maybe 0 digit, 8 digits, 1 digit per annum. And it sounds very good. But guess what? If you look at the data for microfinance banks, most of them are women. And just by doing us, most of them are women, and they're like maybe single digits per month, maybe like 4% per month and stuff. And just by doing this, I realized that most women do retail, and retail is maybe they buy something for $1, they sell it for $10. So I just by doing, I realized that that is good in itself, but that's when, for us, from our experience, when we started, we couldn't compete with single digits per annum because, I mean, we don't get that. Most of those funds are development funds, just channeled to banks for women. But what we realized that we started doing, we started telling them, we started having an ROI discussion. You know, it's like, because I started noticing that even if you say bring, you know, most of the time I try to go to the comment and I still see the women say, this is expensive. In this place, the interest rate is 2% per annum. And I'm laughing. But I noticed that for us, we couldn't play that. And what we started doing was ROI. We started saying, what's the ROI discussion? Yeah. And we started showing them some of the ROI discussion for doing nothing. People think it's safe to do nothing, you know, just play with what you do and just do nothing. And when we started doing that, we noticed that the conversation changed quickly. Do you get? But it's because we realized that women spend money. So like, you know, paying more is not really like something that they're not used to. But they always like value to be served to them in a certain way.
Yeah.
And until you learn how to serve value that way, and be able to communicate it to them, you always be pushing buttons that, you say they came, but many of them did not come and stuff. So yeah, so those kind of insights are things that are at our level, we're able to find out and be able to respond very quickly and stuff. I mean, when we started when we during the COVID situation, we started thinking of how do we upscale, because I noticed that with every pandemic and stuff, a lot of people cut down staff, and we are the first people to cut down administrative staff. You don't need a receptionist, you don't need a this, and then majority of them are women. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, most of them, it's like a majority of non-technical staff. Like if you're in a company and you need to cut down staff to be able to stay afloat, you actually start cutting down on non-technical skills just to be able to stay afloat. And most of them are women. And we started the fact of saying we need to upskill more women. And we started doing like being able to do design on Canva, being able to do like voiceover, like new things that we felt that they are opportunities, but they're not mainstream yet in Nigeria. And during that process, I found out something. When we started doing a survey with women, we found out that they didn't have personal PCs.
Really?
Yeah, many women don't have personal PCs.
It's funny you say that. If I really think about it, I think I don't know.
It's
really weird.
It's very funny because it's like you see them with iPhone X, iPhone, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You don't have a personal PC. Like, yeah. So it was an awakening because, first of all, I think I was, in a way I knew it, but I didn't know it was that
serious.
Yeah, it was that serious and stuff. So with the whole everything moving digital, it's something that you actually need to tell a woman that maybe before you buy that iPhone X, have a laptop. That sort of campaign needs to go.
Is that a specific age group that you're referring to? Because I'm struggling to see how the younger generation wouldn't necessarily have PCs at this point.
Nope.
No? Oh, wow.
It's not a specific age group. I mean, most of the people we deal with are from 22 and stuff. Some of them are still coppers and everything. What do you mean? I mean, I schooled in Nigeria and stuff. I didn't have a PC. In fact, let me tell you a story. So my department where I schooled, I went to FUTU for my first degree, and it was mathematics and computer science.
That's what you studied?
That's the department that I was in.
Okay.
So typically, while I went to school, I didn't want to study industrial maths. I went to school to study computer science. So by third year, you have to major in computer science or mathematics. I've always felt mathematics was for nerd, so I didn't actually want to do that. But by third year, I didn't have money to buy PC, laptop. And someone told me that if you don't have laptops, there's no point to study computer science.
I was wondering how that would actually work.
Yeah, many people that I went to class with didn't have laptops.
But obviously the classes had computers for you guys to utilize. Don't even tell me I'm wrong, because that's just ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense.
So that is how I actually ended up doing industrial mathematics. I went to school. My jam was computer science. What I wanted to do was computer science. So I mean, I could relate very well. I didn't have a computer. I couldn't buy a computer. I couldn't afford a computer.
But they still didn't provide you with one.
No, I mean, there was a computer lab. You have to book the queue and you have to go there. So it's like,
I sound really ignorant and really, but this is quite shocking.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be surprised, but I am.
I mean, in my class, we were like 100 and 30 something and everything. And at the end of the day, because I saw the crowd, like, I mean, about 90 something or so, they went to a computer. So with that lab, then a few of them had laptops and stuff. I just said,
But a majority of students had to queue.
Yeah, you have to book for your turn, go to a cyber cafe and stuff.
That's
just to be able to run comments and stuff. So, I mean, and this is when 2007, Nigeria hasn't changed that. Well, we've changed.
Do you know what? We really do need to talk about it, because let's move on a little bit to the events of the past 2 weeks. You're in the tech space, you're in the investment space, and I think it's fair to say that both those spaces would have had some sort of impact, just like it probably did with COVID as well, with what's been going on in the country at the moment. Can I just let me just share with me your views, whether from the business perspective or even a personal perspective, on how you have felt with the NSARS movement, and the the decisions that a lot of youth have decided to sort of take over the past couple of weeks. How's it kind of impacted you, your industry, your the tech space, the entrepreneur space, the business space, investment space? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So I think COVID was just winding down, and for me, a lot of female entrepreneurs remember that even our funds were out, and some of these women had to close business for COVID. So, when I know that, when I believe that I'm in God's will for my life, is the fact that I was still sleeping. I didn't know how that happened. I was more worried for them to, pull themselves together. So we're trying to make people, pivot into things to actually stay afloat, because it started from 2 weeks to 1 month. So then it was like, whoa,
Yeah.
So I wanted them to stay sane. I wanted them to be stuff and everything. So when the whole NSAS, started, I think that we did not see the turn of, it's like, how you think about, how do I project forward? It just didn't look like projecting forward would come to like a massacre and stuff. That whole experience was something that I'm very happy that, Nigeria, we prayed and everything, that we're bouncing back out of it. But it was really like, gosh, please, we don't want another recession. Nigeria can't handle another recession. We're trying to bring a lot of people out of poverty. We don't want more people to go into poverty. And just seeing like a lot of people's stores being looted and stuff, it was really, for me, I think maybe because I'm also an entrepreneur, it was really personal for me, because like some of these people are actually struggling. People see people smiling with nice clothes and
true.
they think that you have money,
you have it together and everything is perfect.
So it's like, and also it was for me, when I started watching videos of people that are like in Christian dominated states and I see the same thing, it was really like, what are we learning? Because I can't think of, maybe even an ATM broke, I can't pick money from it. So it was really like, it was an awareness that I got for me personally. And for me as an entrepreneur, it was really, and some of the beliefs in the fact that we all have a role to play in this is the fact that intentionally there needs to be more effort from private sector, from everyone, in educating and pulling people up. This is the lack of education. A lot of people that were leading this movement were educated people, were middle-class people, that if you ask to come and even bring gun or something, they will say, no, let's dialogue. There are people that, if you say, oh, let's riot, think about it. I was looking at the pictures from the rally and I saw like people were, they say, oh, my phone got missing. There's a lost and found session. They say, oh, they go there to eat. They were happy and everything. Like, it became like a carnival. Like, people,
Though it was radiating a lot of positive
energy.
So,
so one of my friend, Money Africa, Tose, she says, some, like people on the streets were like happy for once. They now like, they enjoyed something in Nigeria because they were coming there to eat. So the way it deteriorated to this, I was a bit like, shocked.
it was shocking. And I don't even want us to play down the trauma that I think has infringed on everybody.
No, I was talking to someone and I said that, when women say that, sometimes to say, oh, I'm in an emotional abusive relationship, people always think that
they think it's a joke.
Yes!
It's not taken seriously.
No. So now when I talk to men and women, they're emotionally traumatized. And I say, yes, that's how we feel.
I
So I'm like,
they
they
understand
now understand
now.
it. So
Yeah.
it's not like there was any physical thing done to you, but you know that, oh gosh,
It's trauma.
you know, it's like, I need to be careful.
We all need to, we all need to be very, very careful. We all need to kind of to deal with it in very healthy ways. The NSARS movement for me was bittersweet. Started off as something amazingly, like, just super passionate. I was amazed by how people came together. You know, I went protesting with some of my staff, and
But I mean, so when I was talking to one of my mentor, for me, so that whole process, so whenever I think about things, I also think about it in terms of what is my role. I realized that I was talking to my mentor and he said something. He said, power without leadership is disastrous.
it's very right.
And that's what I got. You know, he says, oh, you guys were getting power. That's fine. But there was no leader. So I got that part from the fact. I mean, like, sometimes when I talk to these people, I'm like, wow, you know, like, these old people sometimes spend. It's just so when he said that thing, it hit me. That
It's
leadership.
funny you say that, because how old was this person you were referring to?
He's how old is Mitchell? He's like he's, I'm not sure,
But
he's like
around that 60 plus,
no,
or
he's
not?
not 60.
Not up to
Mitchell,
that.
like, he's the owner of Interstretch. So
Probably
he's,
50 something,
yeah,
then probably
50
around
something.
the 50 age.
Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of wisdom that a select few of that generation can really share with us, that we really need to be very careful not to dismiss.
Yeah,
We need to be very careful, because I think the youthful exuberance
so he
makes
said,
us feel as if
yes,
we
so
are
he said,
invincible somehow.
he started telling me about, you know, some of the unrest and this thing in Nigeria, and said, guess who are driving it? Youths. And, you know, sometimes he says that, you know, and for me, I think I've also heard TD Jake say something. He said, when you come to somewhere and you realize that, you know, things are not the way it should be and people are not doing something, that before you go and feel that you're the changer, you need to pay attention. You need to think about, find out the history.
You need to understand it.
You need to understand it. And you need to be strategic. You know, there's some things that, I mean, even as a woman, I'm also learning that there's some things that you just don't come to, you know, just some battles that even when your enemy comes with gun, once you see, you know, like, there's something TD Jakes said one time that really stayed with me. He said, before you go for war, you need to find out the spoils of the war. You know, so it would say, like, what does success mean to look like?
Honestly,
what does success to you guys look like?
Ifeoma, I think one thing I've definitely taken from the past 2 weeks is that we need more wisdom.
Yeah, wisdom.
I need more wisdom. We all need more wisdom, and I think that's the beginning of getting it.
Yeah,
it's admitting
yeah.
that we lack it.
Yes.
And the moment we can really be so inward thinking and be self-analytical and be honest with ourselves and know that, yes, our heart's in the right place. And I've said this before, our hearts are definitely in the right place, but we lack wisdom. Now I sound like my mother and my father here, because age is starting to set in, but it's true. And you come to that realization when you see people dying around you, and you see things that people have really suffered for. Entrepreneurs, we know intrinsically what it takes to build a business in Nigeria. We know what it takes to keep a business running in Nigeria. It's tougher than most places, but somehow by the grace of God, we get it, and we keep it going. We know we don't always reach the height of our dreams and aspirations on it, but at least we build something. And we've just looked around us, and a lot of these businesses have crumbled to the ground. People's dreams, people's hard work and sweat were just literally burnt to the ground. And seeing that was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was.
It gives you have a perspective as an entrepreneur, because and I think for those who are out there who are not necessarily entrepreneurs, I think you should also understand, because I think it's a Nigerian way to, you see yourself building something only for it to be
I
knocked
think
down.
I think that you know, like, when I look at people that say, oh, I spent 10 years trying to do a cure for cancer and I don't have cancer, there's more of, we need to, there's a stage in my life where I felt like God was teaching me empathy.
My favorite word.
Like
That's my favorite word.
I'd always been, so I told you about my kind of personality. If I want this lamp, like I was going to do everything for this lamp. Like, I walk, maybe I'll burn midnight candle, strategize, think about it, and I get it. And I've always felt that everybody should be able to do that. And there was a stage in my life where so many things were happening, and God was actually teaching me that just because you can do this, just because you can actually do this, doesn't mean that everybody can do it. And you should actually be empathetic to those people who can't. So I think that when I saw the looting of, ShopRite or something at this thing, the first time it happened, I was crying for people I never met. Why? Just because I felt that, I can imagine somebody fainting and going into high BP and just, never being the same. I can imagine homes, marriages breaking up. I can imagine, like things, people that were already
strained.
Yeah. So, sometimes it's always like, yeah, I'm already hot. I'm trying to hot them, but it doesn't make you unhot.
It doesn't stop your own pain.
Yeah, it doesn't stop your own pain. So it's a lot of, but I noticed that that's most of all the things that we want to be seen in society comes from actually the home. I remember being the first child of my mom in Ikeja in the 90s when Yahoo started. And all of a sudden, like, boys on our streets, they will come and say they made money and this thing, that they were pressing the internet, they were going to cyber cafe. And I remember coming back, one day and telling my mom that, hey, that some people are pressing internet and they're getting money. And, she's like, and one day she called me and she said, so now started talking to them. And I started asking them what did they do. They now said, oh, they will chat with somebody. Maybe the person will love them and, send money to them. Or they will just, do dupe and this thing. And I came home and I was telling my mom, and my mom said something that struck me, that changed my perspective. At that age, she said, how can you do that? What if they did that to me? And I remember that my mom was a single mother with 4 children.
Struggling with 4 children already.
And imagine like another guy duping her. Like, it will break my heart. And from that moment, that thought, in short, even when I talk to a guy and the guy, I say, what do you do? He does not even say coherently. That conversation is done. Do you get what I mean?
It goes back to the value system, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all about
and that's
value
education.
System.
If you're that's
I don't
education.
know if it's education because
there's informal education, then there's formal education.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, we all need to have people who are educating us to follow the right path and to make good choices regardless of the cards that we are dealt along the way, and to always know how to show empathy and to have empathy towards every situation or every scenariO that you hear about. And that to me is education. You don't need to be in formal school to have education, but you must be educated. And a lot of the people who turned against a peaceful protest, unfortunately, are not educated enough. They weren't, and it's sad. And I definitely have empathy towards them. And I think we definitely need to, in all of our endeavors, whether entrepreneurship, business, we need to put a lot of emphasis on education, and plowing resources into that, so that people are given more options, more choices, allows you to make better choices. More options allows you to make better choices.
I feel like this thing you said is very key, like leadership. Like I always tell professionals and stuff, I say, wherever you come, be a leader. If you're dealing with like the youth in your church, once in a while you call them, you say, come. As in, Nigeria is a country that lacks leadership
on many fronts.
And if we intentionally take it, you sit down, like even your nanny, say, what do you want to do with your life? And like, be conscious about leadership, be conscious about making sure that people understands. Like there's something Miles Monroe always says that leaders build leaders. Be conscious about telling people that, when I work with women and when I have the opportunity to spend time with them, the only thing I want to always gain is to tell them that you're the leader of your life.
Before we wrap up, and we are coming to the close of our podcast, and it's been wonderful speaking to you, Ifeoma. I'm learning so much, and I don't know about you, but there's moments in this conversation I wanted to just tear up and just cry.
Yeah.
It's really emotional, it's really sad, and it really just breaks my heart. But just before we wrap up, define leadership for me. Because we have many in the positions of leadership, but we're not being led properly. And I think that Nigeria, like you just said, we don't have leaders. There are people in the positions, but they're not adequately leading. Define leadership for me.
So, who is a leader? I mean, I started paying particular attention to leadership when I listened to Miles Monroe's something. I just came across something on self-leadership on YouTube, and I listened to it. And from that day, my perspective, no matter what is happening in my life, what is happening with anybody in my life, I'm going to be the leader of my life. So for me, leadership is ownership. Own your journey, own your story, own the direction of where you're going. Leadership is intentionally knowing that you are responsible for directing other people too, and making sure that they become the best version of themselves. So for me, it's a two-way thing. One is yourself, putting in the work, knowing it's something I know all my, sometimes when I talk to people like over 30 and they said, oh, somebody said that you're scattered, for example. And they say, no, I'm not scattered. And I hear it from 10 people and I actually sit with them and see that they're scattered and they keep denying it. I'm in shock. Like, I know all my faults. Like, I know them. I sit in bed with them. Sometimes I tell them, please, let's change, and sometimes I put in the work and sometimes they sabotage me and stuff. Yeah. But, just knowing when they show up and trying to put measures to manage and, control them is leadership. So it's one, yourself. And two is being conscious that you got to pull people, like you got to lead people, like being conscious of a generation that don't know leadership, that can't identify leadership, and just be, consciously making an effort to say, hi, so I think you're special. I think you're this. You have to do this. You have to do that, for yourself. And know that when you're doing that, make them own it. Because, leadership,
not dictating to them, but rather
make
guiding.
Them own it. They have to own. Leaders create leaders. They don't create, that's the problem with Nigerian leadership, even in the family sense. They want to make mini versions of themselves. No, that's not. I want you to own the version of your own self because it's beautiful. Yeah. And in it you find, some things that you're struggling with. That's okay. I find them too. I can present you the list of my own. Just keep trying to work on the ones you can and everything. And it gets better every day. And even if it doesn't feel like it or look like it, you will be happiest lying down on your deathbed, knowing that you did all that you can to do and everything. I always tell people one of my favorite stuff is that I want to die recognizing myself and I want to die empty. Those are the two things that I want to be able to do. And, thank God for the Holy Spirit and stuff. And thank God for Nigeria. And thank God for all the people, amazing people that are contributing to my life in one way or the other and stuff. And yeah, I'll keep pushing forward till I get there.
Oh my God, Ifeoma, I just got chills. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was amazing. Guys, I really hope that you've truly, truly gotten a gem from my conversation with Ifeoma today, because I've definitely been blessed. I hope you guys were equally blessed. And like she said, honestly, true leadership starts with you. The last few weeks, we have seen things just, something that started off so well, just turned so nasty. And really it's because people are not owning their own idea or what should be leadership, true leadership, and just making better choices. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. And please, please, please take care of yourself, and don't forget to be extraordinary in the way that only you can be. Take care, guys. Bye.